Hello and welcome. You're watching News Central Television. I am Judith at TV, and here are the stories making headlines beyond the continent. And we begin the news with updates from Gaza, where fresh Israeli strikes have killed at least 7 people just hours before Israel's cabinet was set to vote on a ceasefire deal. Gaza's Civil Defense Agency reported that 5 people died and over 10 were injured when a house was bombed in the Al-Rimal area west of Gaza City. Now, 2 more people were killed in a separate strike at the Al-Shabiya intersection in Gaza City. The strikes come a day after Qatar and the U.S. announced a ceasefire and hostage release deal between Israel and Hamas. Aimed at ending the war in Gaza, Israeli media reports that the cabinet was set to vote on the ceasefire agreement Thursday morning.
صراحة بعد ما تم إعلان وقف لإطلاق النار والناس فرحت وكانت مسرورة ومبسوطة وبيتت على هذا الأساس تم استهداف مبنى مكون من 5 طوابق. هذا المبنى يوجد بداخله أكثر من 50 شخص. طواقم الدفاع المدني توجهت إلى المكان بطريقة سريعة كما شاهدت قبل قليل. تم نقل عدد كبير من الإصابات وهم الآن معي في داخل الأسعاف وعدد أكبر من الأشلاء ومن الشهداء، وأنا الآن متجه فيهم إلى مستشفى المعمداني لتلقي العلاج. وأنا أؤكد من وأنا بسوق في سيارة الأسعاف إنه ما زالت الاستهدافات والقصف يتوالى منزل تلو الآخر من صباح هذا اليوم حتى هذه اللحظة لم تتوقف خدماتنا وخدمات الإسعافات وطواقم الدفاع المدني.
Meanwhile, the UK Foreign Secretary David Lemmer has welcomed the Gaza ceasefire agreement, describing it as a moment of hope after over a year of agony. Lammy acknowledged the immense suffering endured by hostages and their families, including British citizens who have faced unbearable trauma over the past 15 months. He also highlighted the devastating impact on the people of Gaza, calling the past year a living nightmare for many who have lost loved ones, homes, or livelihoods. The UK has demonstrated its commitment to supporting those affected by the crisis, announcing a £5.5 million aid package to provide humanitarian assistance and medical care in Gaza. Let's also tell you that the European Union has announced a new aid package of €120 million for war-torn Gaza, bringing the total humanitarian assistance to over €450 million since 2023. The package includes food, healthcare, shelter assistance, and support for access to clean water. Now, this move comes a day after the announcement of a ceasefire and hostage release deal. EU officials hope the ceasefire will improve access for humanitarian aid and allow effective distribution to those in need. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa is currently in Brussels for meetings with senior EU officials.
Also adopting a package of €120 million for Gaza to address the ongoing humanitarian crisis there. We know that the situation there is catastrophic. We know that Palestinians urgently need nutrition, medical supplies, shelters, other protection. We hope we will be able to deliver, and with this package, in cooperation with our partners, we want to address the most pressing emergencies.
In the meantime, tensions remain high in the Gaza conflict as Israel accuses Hamas of backtracking on parts of the fragile ceasefire and hostage release deal. Israeli government spokesman David Mencer says that details of the agreement have not yet been finalized and negotiations are ongoing. The accusation comes as a setback to efforts to end the war in Gaza. Israel and Hamas had agreed to a ceasefire and hostage exchange, but the deal's fate now hangs in the balance.
Families of our hostages have been informed today that Hamas has added further demands that contradict the agreement with the mediators. As of this time, the details of the agreement have not yet been finalized, and the negotiation team is continuing its efforts to reach a solution. The Israeli negotiating team are still in Doha as befits Israel's willingness to finalize the hostage release agreement. Even last night, the Prime Minister strongly insisted that Hamas fold their last-minute demand to change the deployment of IDF forces in the Philadelphia corridor, so important, so crucial to stop weapons smuggling to Hamas. This hostage agreement, if it is finally agreed, is not a concession. It's a demonstration of Israel's strength and moral clarity. Hamas's days are numbered and Gaza will be free from their terror.
And to further discuss this, I'm joined by international correspondent Afia Hagen. Afia, I mean, just yesterday we had the talk about how fragile the ceasefire can be, a ceasefire deal can be, and whether or not Hamas and Israel is going to hold on to their own part of the bargain. Can you tell us the latest on this ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel?
Absolutely right, Judith. I mean, this time yesterday we were saying that this is looking like a fragile peace deal, and I think we were absolutely right. You know, this ceasefire agreement and the agreement to free the hostages. So the latest that we've had is that the Israeli cabinet, who have to vote on this deal, they were supposed to vote on it today. They are going to vote on it tomorrow, and they will convene to approve the ceasefire deal. Now, this is because of some loose ends that had to be tied up. Antony Blinken, the outgoing U.S. Secretary of State, said he was unsurprised that there was loose ends that had to be tied up, and I think these were some extra stipulations that Hamas had wanted, potentially around some of the prisoners that they had wanted to be released. Now, the Israeli National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, he is going to give a statement round about now, and he had threatened to topple the Israeli government by not agreeing to the peace deal. He threatened to quit the coalition government if this peace deal goes ahead. So we're expecting to hear from him anytime now, but it's thought that even if he does resign from the government that he's promised to do, that this deal can still be approved by the Israeli cabinet. So these stipulations that Hamas put in, it was said that this happened after the announcement by the Qatari Prime Minister yesterday. It's thought those loose ends have been tied up, and the Israeli cabinet will vote on the deal tomorrow morning, and the ceasefire will go ahead from Sunday, that's the 19th of January. But it's still very fragile, and let's also remind ourselves that this is phase one of a three-phase deal, 42 days of a ceasefire at first, and then phases 2 and 3 should be negotiated during this 42 days.
Afia, I have to say that with the statement from Israel's spokesperson regarding this deal, saying it's not finalized, and also on the part of Hamas as well, one has to ask about, you know, the reaction to this proposed ceasefire, just besides Hamas and Israel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, pretty much the view from Europe, I'll start there first. The UK welcoming the ceasefire deal. You heard David Lammy earlier on talking about that, saying it was a long time coming. Keir Starmer said the same thing, that this was long overdue news. President Emmanuel Macron from France said the deal must be respected and the hostages must be freed. Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor, said this agreement must now be implemented to the letter. Now, leaders in the region, the Egyptian leader, who is heavily involved in this agreement, actually, Egypt was. So President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi added that the two-state solution had to be reached to enjoy stability. The Turkish President Erdogan said that we hope the agreement will be beneficial. Iran, which suffered serious damage by the weakening of Hezbollah and also from Hamas, have welcomed the deal as well. The Lebanese president, though, has urged caution, saying that Israel's commitments need to be monitored. Now, the families of the hostages who have been taken, many of them today are worried. We do not know the names or the identities of the 34 hostages that are due to be released in phase one of this deal. We know that they will be women and children, people over the age of 50, and anyone who has any medical conditions. We don't know how many of those hostages will be dead or will be alive. And then you still have about 100 people remaining, 100 hostages remaining, and lots of the families are scared that number one, they may not see their relatives again, that phase 2 may not happen, and those hostages may never be released, or they may never have their relatives' bodies back to be able to bury them. So there's definitely a sense of hope when it comes to, world leaders, but the families of the hostages at the center of this, still very, very worried.
I mean, I have to ask, right, whether the ceasefire deal is, complete or finalized, or if there's even going to be one by Sunday, the violence still continues in the region. And so what can you tell us regarding, the ongoing violence?
Yeah, and this is something that happens even with the Lebanese deal. Just before it came, Israel really bombarded Lebanon in the days that led up to the ceasefire agreement. And you're seeing the same thing happen here in Gaza. 73 people killed overnight in airstrikes, 12 people living in a residential block in the neighborhood of Gaza City have been killed. Those strikes ongoing, and actually today is the deadliest day for a few weeks. And we can expect an uptick in the violence before Sunday. That's what usually happens with these deals. It's really, really sad to say. But yes, there has been a clear uptick in the violence, and that will continue until the ceasefire takes hold on Sunday, 19th of January.
Afia, many thanks for just insight here. Appreciate you for doing this with us. Afia Hagen, international correspondent for News Central Television. A bit of more insight on the ceasefire deal. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we return, a bid to promote bilateral ties, UK-Ukraine sign 100-year defense pact. This and more after the break. Join us again. And you're welcome back. Let's shift our attention to politics in North America, where in a somber farewell address from the Oval Office, President Joe Biden expressed concern over the rise of an ultra-wealthy class in America that he believes poses a significant threat to democracy. As he prepares to return the White House to Donald Trump, Biden called on Americans to safeguard the nation's institutions against powerful forces seeking to undermine its core values. In a heartfelt speech, Biden highlighted the dangers of an emerging class driven by extreme wealth and influence, warning that it jeopardizes democracy, fundamental rights, and fairness.
Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation. But powerful forces want to wield their unchecked influence to eliminate the steps we've taken to tackle the climate crisis, to serve their own interest for power and profit. I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech-industrial complex that could pose real dangers for our country as well.
Meanwhile, President Joe Biden has warned of a dangerous concentration of power among a few wealthy people in the United States in his farewell address to the nation. He also warned against the dangers of ignoring climate change, the dangers of AI, and the spread of misinformation. For News Central, international correspondent Afia Hagen has more.
Departing American President Joe Biden cautioned against a perilous oligarchy emerging in the United States during his valedictory speech, marking the conclusion of his extensive political career spanning multiple decades.
Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead.
Biden criticized an affluent technological industrial establishment, which he claimed could exercise unrestricted control over American citizens. He appeared to be referencing Silicon Valley leaders like Elon Musk, the world's wealthiest man, who maintains close ties with Trump and provided substantial financial support to his election campaign. His final televised address from the White House also incorporated warnings about false information spreading through social platforms.
Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation.
Biden also warned about the effects of environmental degradation.
The powerful forces want to wield their unchecked influence to eliminate the steps we've taken to tackle the climate crisis, to serve their own interest for power and profit.
Speaking from the Oval Office, surrounded by his gathered family members, he highlighted his single-term presidency's achievements, citing employment growth, investments in infrastructure, healthcare improvements, steering the nation through the pandemic, and enhancing national security. Biden extended good wishes to Donald Trump's succeeding administration before issuing several pointed cautions, stating the stakes are extraordinarily high at this moment. Concluding his address, Biden urged Americans to remain vigilant over their nation, saying, "May you all serve as guardians of the flame." His farewell speech coincided with his announcement of a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, which he mentioned in his opening statements. Biden described the negotiations as among the most challenging of his career and claimed partial responsibility for finalizing the agreement. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagan.
And off to Europe, as UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy have signed a historic 100-year agreement strengthening defense ties and deepening their partnership. The landmark deal outlines cooperation in defense, security and trade and reflects a strong affection between the two nations. This long-term partnership paves the way for a robust and enduring relationship building on existing cooperation in areas such as military training and economic support. The agreement also underscores the UK's commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The signing of the agreement marks a significant milestone in UK and Ukraine relations, demonstrating the two countries' shared commitment to democracy, freedom, and the rule of law.
Дійсно, історичний день, і справді наші відносини України та Британії зараз найбільш близькі, ніж будь-коли. Сьогодні ми вийшли на новий рівень відносин, і це навіть більш ніж стратегічні відносини. Ми підписали угоду про сторічне партнерство.
And off to Asia, as dozens of women gathered in Kolkata, India, ahead of the expected verdict this Saturday, January 18th, in the trial of a man accused of raping and murdering a 31-year-old female doctor. The heinous crime sparked nationwide outrage over violence against women. The case has drawn widespread attention and condemnation, with many demanding justice for the victim and her family. The verdict, expected this Saturday, will be closely watched across India.
To me, I'm not absolutely okay with whatever the charge sheet has been submitted, but let's wait for this Saturday. And I think we all are hoping that we will get proper justice, but let's see.
Actually, we common people are extremely disappointed to watch that the investigation has not gone to the proper manner, and
I think this accused, not only this accused, there are so many accused in the case of the murder and rape of Arjikar Hospital.